Welcome back to ABC General Hospital Spoilers channel. Today, we will learn about the explosive revelations coming your way on Monday, December 15th, as Port Charles continues to reel from the shocking shooting of Drew Kaine. The aftermath of this violent incident has created a web of suspicion that threatens to ensnare multiple residents, and the tension is reaching a boiling point as new evidence surfaces and old alliances crumble. The investigation intensifies. Detective Dante Falconeri finds himself at the center of a complex investigation that grows more convoluted by the hour. Working alongside his partner Nathan West, Dante has been meticulously reviewing traffic camera footage from the night Drew was shot, and what they've discovered could potentially blow this case wide open. The footage reveals a startling number of vehicles and possible suspects in the vicinity of the crime scene, making this investigation far more complicated than anyone initially anticipated. At Port Charles Police Department headquarters, Dante sits down with Acting District Attorney Justine Turner for what promises to be a critical briefing session. The detective lays out all the new evidence they've collected, including the traffic cam footage that shows at least 3 different vehicles that were present in the area during the time frame when Drew was shot. As Dante presents this information, the weight of the investigation becomes clear. Turner listens intently as Dante outlines the various suspects and their potential motives before posing a crucial question that could determine the entire direction of the case. The question Dante asks Turner is deceptively simple, but loaded with implications. With this new information, who do you want to go after? This isn't just about following evidence anymore. It's about making strategic decisions that could have far-reaching consequences for multiple prominent Port Charles families. The traffic footage has revealed that Michael Corinthos and Tracy Quartermain were both in the vicinity at the time of the shooting, placing two powerful members of the Quartermain family under suspicion. Additionally, Kai Taylor and Trina Robinson were inside Drew's residence, making them potential witnesses or even suspects. But perhaps the most concerning revelation is that Willow Kaine may have been in the area on foot during the shooting. This information adds another layer of complexity to an already tangled situation, especially given Willow's complicated relationship with Drew and the ongoing custody battle over her children. The possibility that she could be involved in the shooting, even peripherally, threatens to derail everything she's been fighting for. Confrontation at the Quartermain mansion. Meanwhile, tensions are running dangerously high at the Quartermain mansion, where Harrison Chase finds himself in an uncomfortable position. Standing firm against Michael Corinthos, Chase makes his position absolutely clear regarding his relationship with Willow. In a moment of decisive clarity, Chase tells Michael that he has absolutely no interest in coming between a mother and her children. This statement reveals Chase's integrity and his genuine concern for what's best for Willow and her kids, regardless of his personal feelings. The situation remains precarious for Willow, who hasn't been fully exonerated from suspicion in Drew's shooting, despite the emergence of several other persons of interest. The custody hearing looms large on the horizon, adding tremendous pressure to an already volatile situation. Chase's motives are pure. He's not attempting to win back Willow's children or manipulate the situation to his advantage. Instead, he genuinely believes in Willow's innocence and wants to support her through this difficult time. Michael, however, sees things very differently. His protective instincts as a father are in overdrive, and he doesn't believe Willow is safe to be alone with their children given the current circumstances. His distrust extends beyond Willow to Drew himself, whom Michael views as a threat to his family's well-being. Adding weight to Michael's concerns is a troubling revelation from his son Wiley, who has made it clear that he doesn't like Drew. This innocent but telling statement from a child carries significant weight in Michael's mind, reinforcing his determination to protect his children from what he perceives as dangerous influences. Brooklyn's discovery. The drama escalates when Brooklyn Quartermain stumbles upon a scene that shouldn't be happening. According to Friday's spoilers, Brooklyn will catch Willow in a place where she absolutely should not be. The shock on Brooklyn's face makes it evident that she knows Chase would never have permitted Willow to enter the breakfast room at the mansion under the current circumstances. Yet they're Willow's stance, creating a situation that could have serious ramifications for everyone involved. Brooklyn wastes no time in addressing the situation directly. With urgency in her voice, she tells Willow in no uncertain terms that she needs to leave immediately. The tension in this moment is palpable, as everyone involved understands the potential consequences. If Chase had actually allowed Willow to accompany him into the mansion, the conversation between Chase and Michael would be taking an entirely different turn right now. Chase is fully aware of the legal restrictions in place. Willow is not permitted to see the children until after the custody hearing concludes and a decision is rendered. This violation, even if well-intentioned, could seriously damage Willow's case and give Michael additional ammunition in his fight for full custody. The desperation that would drive Willow to risk seeing her children despite the legal prohibitions speaks volumes about her emotional state and the toll this separation is taking on her. A dangerous alliance. In a surprising turn of events, Drew has decided to pay a visit to Curtis Ashford, who currently finds himself behind bars at the PCPD jail. This encounter between the shooting victim and a potential suspect is fraught with tension and hidden agendas. Curtis, ever the strategic thinker, attempts to negotiate with Drew, suggesting that perhaps the two of them could work together to their mutual benefit. Drew's response reveals his true feelings about the situation. He makes it clear that he doesn't want Curtis to be sentenced for the shooting. The person he really wishes had pulled the trigger is Michael. This admission shows just how deep the animosity runs between Drew and Michael, and how this shooting has become entangled with broader family conflicts and personal vendettas. But Curtis isn't finished negotiating. He issues Drew a stark warning that carries the weight of a serious threat. If Curtis's life falls apart as a result of this situation, then Drew's life will fall apart as well. This creates a fascinating dynamic between the two men, transforming them into what can only be described as mutually blackmailing buddies. The irony isn't lost on either of them that they used to actually be friends, and now they're leveraging secrets and threats against each other to protect their respective interests. The question remains, what exactly does Curtis know about Drew that gives him this leverage? And what can Drew offer Curtis in return for his cooperation or silence? Jason's desperate plea. Elsewhere in Port Charles, Jason Morgan finds himself in a delicate situation with Britt Westburn. Making an earnest plea, Jason tells Britt that if she cooperates with what he's asking, she will finally be free from whoever has been controlling her actions and manipulating her life. This conversation suggests that Britt has begun to open up to Jason about the terrible situation she's been trapped in. Viewers have learned that someone has been supplying Britt with a cure for her Huntington's disease. But this apparent act of mercy comes with strings attached. Whoever is providing this life-saving treatment has been using it as leverage to blackmail Britt into doing their bidding. The cruelty of using someone's desperate need for medical treatment as a tool for manipulation speaks to the ruthless nature of the person behind this scheme. General Hospital fans are well aware that Jen Sidwell is the mastermind behind these machinations. This is precisely who Jason is helping Sonny Corinthos fight against, making Britt's situation part of a much larger conflict that threatens the entire power structure of Port Charles. The fact that Lucas Jones has given Britt a strong recommendation to be rehired at General Hospital as an obstetrician-gynecologist, particularly after she helped Portia Robinson, provides her with legitimate employment options and a potential path out of her current predicament. The critical question now is whether Britt will trust Jason enough to reveal everything she knows about Sidwell and Pascal's operations. If she does, Jason might be able to help her escape from under their oppressive control and reclaim her life. But revealing these secrets could also put her in tremendous danger, forcing Britt to weigh the risks of continued silence against the possibility of freedom. As Monday's episode approaches, Port Charles residents find themselves at multiple crossroads, each facing decisions that could alter the course of their lives forever. The shooting of Drew Kaine has proven to be far more than a simple crime. It's become a catalyst that's exposing hidden secrets, testing loyalties, and forcing everyone involved to confront difficult truths about themselves and the people they care about. Next, we will learn about the devastating moment when Portia Robinson's carefully constructed world comes crashing down around her, as she collapses directly into Dr. Isaiah Gannon's arms, while her deepest secret threatens to destroy everything she's been desperately trying to protect. The dramatic scene that's about to unfold at General Hospital will expose a pregnancy bombshell that has far-reaching consequences for multiple people in Port Charles, and the fallout is going to be absolutely catastrophic. The unraveling of Portia's plans. Portia Robinson had finally mustered up the courage and determination to come clean about her relationship with Isaiah Gannon. After weeks of keeping their romance hidden from everyone in Port Charles, particularly from her estranged husband Curtis Ashford, Portia realized she could no longer maintain this secret. The primary reason for her sudden urgency to confess wasn't guilt or a desire for transparency, but rather pure practical necessity. Portia understood with crystal clarity that she would inevitably need to provide her alibi to the Port Charles Police Department regarding the night Drew Kaine Quartermain was shot, and that alibi happened to be Isaiah himself. What viewers need to understand is that Portia Robinson is completely innocent of any involvement in Drew's shooting. She had nothing whatsoever to do with the violent attack that left Drew fighting for his life. However, her whereabouts during the critical time frame meant that she would need to account for her activities, and those activities involved being with Isaiah. Portia made the strategic decision to tell Curtis about her relationship with Isaiah before he discovered it through other channels, which could make the situation exponentially worse. The last thing Portia wanted was for Curtis to learn about her new relationship from the police during their investigation, or worse yet, from some overzealous lawyer looking to discredit her testimony. Even more troubling was the very real possibility that Jordan Ashford, Curtis's ex-wife and perpetual meddler in everyone's business, would somehow catch wind of the information and deliver it to Curtis herself. Jordan has demonstrated time and time again that she simply cannot resist involving herself in Curtis and Portia's affairs, regardless of whether her input is wanted or needed. Curtis's shocking arrest. With her mind made up and her determination solidified, Portia headed to Rora Media, where Curtis maintains his executive office. She rehearsed what she would say during the entire drive over, trying to find the perfect words to explain that she had moved on and found companionship with someone else. However, fate had other plans entirely. The moment Portia arrived at Curtis's office, prepared to have one of the most difficult conversations of her life, everything spiraled completely out of control in ways she never could have anticipated. Just as Portia was about to knock on Curtis's door, Detective Nathan West appeared seemingly out of nowhere and placed Curtis Ashford under arrest. Portia stood there in absolute shock, watching helplessly as the father of her unborn child was handcuffed and read his rights. She frantically tried to get answers from anyone who would listen, demanding to know what charges were being brought against Curtis and why this was happening right now. But nobody would tell her anything substantive. The officers were tight-lipped, following protocol, and Portia was left completely in the dark about what had just transpired. In Portia's panicked mind, she immediately jumped to the conclusion that Curtis had been arrested for shooting Drew. It seemed like the most logical explanation given everything that had been happening in Port Charles recently. However, the reality of the situation was somewhat different. Curtis wasn't being arrested for attempted murder or any violent crime at all. Instead, the charges against him were for making a false statement to police and lying about his whereabouts. Specifically, Curtis had told investigators that he was alone before meeting Jordan at the bar, and that statement turned out to be demonstrably false. Now, that's not to say the charges against Curtis couldn't be upgraded later. The investigation is still ongoing, and if evidence emerges linking Curtis more directly to Drew's shooting, attempted murder charges could certainly follow. But for the immediate moment, the authorities are only charging him with this more limited offense of providing false information to law enforcement during an active investigation. Medical emergency reveals everything. Completely overwhelmed by what she had just witnessed and unable to process the rapid succession of devastating events, Portia fled from Aurora Media and raced back to her sanctuary at General Hospital. She burst into her office, breathing heavily, her mind racing with 1,000 terrifying thoughts about what Curtis's arrest meant for everyone involved. And there, waiting in her office, was Isaiah Gannon. The concern on his face was immediate and genuine as he took in Portia's obvious distress. Isaiah's first assumption was that Portia had followed through with her plan to tell Curtis about their relationship, and that the conversation had gone disastrously wrong. He gently asked if she had managed to tell Curtis about them, thinking that Curtis's reaction was what had Portia so visibly upset. But Portia was in a complete emotional freefall, barely able to form coherent sentences as she explained that she never got the opportunity to say anything because Curtis was arrested before she could speak to him. Isaiah, piecing together the limited information available, asked the obvious question: had the police arrested Curtis for shooting Drew? Portia could only respond that she assumed so, but she honestly didn't know for certain because nobody would give her any concrete information. The uncertainty made everything so much worse. Then Portia descended into a spiral of shame and self-blame that was painful to witness. She began saying that everything was her fault, that Drew had been blackmailing her, and Curtis had gotten dragged into this terrible situation because of her actions and choices. Naturally, Isaiah was confused and deeply concerned by this revelation. He needed to understand the full picture, so he asked Portia directly what Drew possibly had on her that he could use as blackmail material. Portia opened her mouth to explain, to finally tell Isaiah everything about the complicated web she had been caught in. But before she could get the words out, her body betrayed her in the most terrifying way possible. The pregnancy secret explodes. Without warning, Portia began experiencing severe cramping. The pain was intense and sudden, causing her to double over and clutch her abdomen. Isaiah's expression immediately shifted from confusion to alarm as he watched Portia's face contort in agony. His medical training kicked in instantly, and he moved to support her, asking urgent questions about her symptoms while already formulating a plan to get her the help she desperately needed. Isaiah quickly helped Portia toward an examination room, his mind racing through possible diagnoses for her sudden medical crisis. He's going to ensure she receives immediate medical attention, utilizing all the resources available at General Hospital. And that's when Britt Westburn enters the picture in dramatic fashion. Despite the fact that Britt isn't currently licensed to practice medicine following her suspension, she's going to rush into the examination room and assure Portia that she's there for her and that everything is going to be okay. Isaiah is well aware of Britt's background as a highly skilled obstetrician-gynecologist, and while she technically cannot practice medicine at this moment, the emergency situation demands immediate action. Perhaps Portia's regular obgyn, Dr. Navarro, is unavailable because she's in the middle of a complicated delivery or performing emergency surgery. Maybe she's simply not on the hospital premises at that critical moment. Regardless of the specific circumstances, Britt's expertise is needed, and protocols will be bent, if not broken, to ensure Portia receives proper care. This medical emergency becomes the catalyst for Isaiah discovering the truth that Portia has been hiding. There's simply no way this situation unfolds without Isaiah learning that Portia is pregnant. The examination, the questions Britt will ask, the tests that need to be run, all of it will make the pregnancy impossible to conceal. So now Portia finds herself dealing with multiple crises simultaneously. She's worried sick about Curtis sitting in a jail cell. She's terrified about the health and safety of her unborn baby given these sudden complications. And she's about to face Isaiah's reaction to learning he might be the father. Isaiah discovers the truth. Up until this moment, Isaiah Gannon has had absolutely no idea that Portia is pregnant. She has successfully kept this secret from him despite their intimate relationship. But once the medical examination begins, and Isaiah learns how far along Portia is in her pregnancy, his medical training will allow him to calculate the timeline. Isaiah is an intelligent doctor who understands basic mathematics and pregnancy development. He'll be able to figure out that he could potentially be the biological father of this baby. The conversation that follows is going to be incredibly uncomfortable for both of them. Portia will need to explain to Isaiah why she chose to keep her pregnancy a secret from him, why she didn't confide in him as soon as she discovered she was expecting. She'll have to make him understand the impossible position she found herself in, not knowing for certain who fathered her child and being terrified of the implications either way. Fortunately for Portia, Isaiah Gannon has proven himself to be a remarkably understanding and level-headed individual. He's demonstrated throughout his time in Port Charles that he tends to roll with the punches and doesn't immediately jump to anger or accusations when faced with difficult situations. Isaiah will likely understand once Portia explains everything, why she felt compelled to keep this secret. He'll grasp the complexity of her situation and the fear that must have been consuming her. Portia will also explain to Isaiah that she never intended for Curtis to find out about the pregnancy the way he did. The blame for that particular disaster falls squarely on Jordan Ashford's shoulders. Jordan, being the chronic meddler that she is, took it upon herself to tell Curtis that his estranged wife was pregnant without even confirming whether it was true or not. Jordan's evidence was purely circumstantial. She observed Portia declining alcohol and refusing certain hors d'oeuvres at the Quartermain party, and from those minimal observations, she leaped to conclusions and went running to Curtis with her suspicions. Portia remains furious with Jordan for her interference and boundary-crossing behavior. Jordan is what one might accurately describe as a Stage 5 meddler, someone who simply cannot resist inserting herself into other people's private business regardless of the damage it might cause. When Portia tells Isaiah the full story of how Curtis learned about the pregnancy, Isaiah's existing dislike of Jordan Ashford will only intensify. He already has reasons to be wary of Jordan, and this revelation will reinforce his negative opinion of her character. Curtis builds a nursery for a baby that might not be his. The truly heartbreaking element of this entire situation is that Curtis Ashford has no earthly idea that another man is in the picture. Curtis has been operating under the completely reasonable assumption that he is the father of Portia's baby. After all, they were married for years, and despite their current separation, it would be natural for Curtis to believe the child is his. He has no reason whatsoever to think differently because Portia hasn't told him about Isaiah, and he's been completely in the dark about her new relationship. Based on this assumption of paternity, Curtis has already begun preparing for fatherhood. He's been busy at his house building a nursery for the baby, purchasing furniture, painting walls, and creating a welcoming space for the child he believes will soon be part of his life. The image of Curtis lovingly assembling a crib and choosing paint colors, completely unaware that he might be preparing a nursery he'll never actually need, is genuinely tragic. The emotional devastation he'll experience when he learns the truth has the potential to destroy him. Meanwhile, Isaiah Gannon appears to be genuinely invested in his relationship with Portia Robinson. He's demonstrated through his actions that he has serious feelings for her, and he's prepared to face whatever consequences come from dating his chief of staff at General Hospital. The professional complications don't seem to concern him because his feelings for Portia outweigh those considerations. When the full truth about the pregnancy comes out, Isaiah will likely express that he would welcome being the father. He seems like the type of man who would step up and embrace that responsibility rather than running away from it. An interesting complication that may arise is that Isaiah might initially assume he definitely is the father. Depending on what Portia has or hasn't told him about her relationship timeline with Curtis, Isaiah may not have clarity on when she last slept with her husband. He might operate under the assumption that Portia was simply waiting until she passed the critical first trimester milestone before telling him about the pregnancy, which would be a completely reasonable approach given the high risk of miscarriage in early pregnancy. If that is indeed Isaiah's assumption, then learning the truth that she doesn't actually know who the father is will require yet another awkward and painful conversation between them. The coming episodes promise to deliver devastating emotional confrontations, life-altering revelations, and the kind of relationship drama that General Hospital does better than any other show on television. Portia's secret is out, and there's no putting this genie back in the bottle. The question now becomes how Curtis, Isaiah, and everyone else affected by this bombshell will navigate the aftermath and what it means for the future of all these interconnected relationships.